Tonight, the House floor fell silent for a reason no democracy should ever have to face. Representative Kelly Morrison rose to honor Melissa and Mark Hortman, lost to an act of political violence, and delivered a tribute that was as heartbreaking as it was powerful. This wasn't just about remembering two lives. It was about confronting what political extremism is costing this country.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Today, I rise with a resolution honoring the lives of Minnesota State House Speaker Emerita Melissa Hortman and her husband, Mark Hortman, who we lost to an unspeakable act of political violence last year. Last week, the Minnesota House of Representatives convened for the first time in more than 20 years without Melissa's presence. This resolution is a celebration of Melissa's and Mark's lives and a commemoration of the legacy they left behind. Whereas Melissa Hortman served her community and the state of Minnesota with humility, compassion, and perseverance, whereas Mark Hortman was outgoing, caring, and genuine, a skilled professional, and deeply devoted to his family. Whereas when a politically motivated gunman took the life of Melissa Hortman, Minnesota lost a tireless public servant whose accomplishments distinguish her as one of the most consequential speakers in the history of the Minnesota House of Representatives. Whereas Hortman was a mother of two children, Colin and Sophie, and wife to husband Mark Hortman, who was killed alongside her. Whereas Melissa Hortman was a lifelong Minnesotan who was born and raised and lived most of her life in the northern suburbs of Minneapolis. Whereas Mark Hortman was born and raised in North Carolina, graduated from the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and lived in Minnesota for over 30 years. Whereas Melissa and Mark Hortman met while applying to be mentors in the Big Brothers, Big Sisters of America program and were brought together through their shared devotion to serving others. Whereas Melissa Hortman was a lifelong learner who graduated from Blaine High School, Boston University, and the University of Minnesota Law School, and then returned to school later in life to receive a Master in Public Administration from the Harvard Kennedy School. Whereas Hortman was a devoted public servant who spent her life helping others, teaching Sunday school, serving as a Girl Scout leader, and training service dogs for veterans. Whereas one of Hortman's greatest loves was her family's golden retriever, Gilbert, who was adopted by the Hortmans after being deemed too friendly to be a service dog. Whereas Hortman began her career in public service as a lawyer, suing discriminatory landlords, and reached a record-setting verdict in a housing discrimination lawsuit. Whereas Hortman demonstrated strength of character and perseverance in her determination to serve her community when she was victorious in her third run for the Minnesota House of Representatives in 2004. Whereas Hortman went on to win re-election 10 consecutive times from 2006 to 2024 and was elected by her colleagues as Minority Leader in 2017 and Speaker of the House in 2019. Whereas Hortman was the longest serving female speaker in Minnesota state history. Whereas Hortman was passionate about preventing gun violence, protecting reproductive health care, and leaving behind a better world for future generations by addressing climate change through investments in renewable energy. Whereas Hortman was proud to author Minnesota's solar standard and community solar law. Whereas Hortman led with humor and a calm and steady demeanor, emphasizing the importance of conversation and listening to one another, and rejecting the idea that our political differences should prevent us from working together. Whereas Hortman respected and looked out for all members of her caucus, recognizing their duty to serve each of their unique constituencies, while also holding them together to deliver for all Minnesotans one of the most productive legislative sessions in Minnesota's history. Whereas Hortman will be remembered for the crucial role she played in enacting legislation that allows Minnesotans to take time to care for their loved ones, ensures no student goes hungry, guarantees every woman has the right to bodily autonomy, and upholds our democracy by protecting free and fair elections. Whereas Hortman led with humility and was quick to deflect recognition, allowing others to take the spotlight. Whereas Hortman recognized that true leaders do not bully and coerce. They listen and sacrifice, compromise while remaining true to their convictions, and inspire others to share in their vision of a better future. And whereas this is a moment of mourning a great giant among Minnesota lawmakers, now therefore be it resolved that House of Representatives honors the life of Speaker Emerita Melissa Hortman for her devotion and service to the people of Minnesota, honors the life of Mark Hortman for his devotion to his family and service to his community, honors the life of Gilbert Hortman for his devotion to Melissa, treats, and lying in the snow, honors the leadership of Speaker Emerita Melissa
Gentlewoman's time is
Hortman,
up.
who led with kindness and compassion, passion and pragmatism, and conviction and respect, and honors the legacy of Speaker Emerita Melissa Hortman for her exemplary record in working through political differences through civil discourse and a
The
shared
gentlewoman's time
desire
is up.
to make Minnesota and our country a better place for the next generation. Madam Speaker, I yield back.
This wasn't just a routine resolution, it was a moment of collective mourning and reflection after an unspeakable act of political violence took their lives. Morrison described Melissa Hortman as one of the most consequential speakers in Minnesota history. And when you look at her record, that's not hyperbole. She won re-election 10 consecutive times. She became minority leader. Then Speaker of the House. She became the longest-serving female speaker in Minnesota state history. But what stands out most wasn't just her resume. It was how she led. Morrison emphasized that Melissa led with humility, compassion, and perseverance. She wasn't known for bullying or coercion, for compromise, for staying true to her convictions without tearing others down. That kind of leadership feels increasingly rare in today's political climate. And let's talk about her legislative impact. Melissa Hortman played a crucial role in passing laws that expanded paid leave so families could care for loved ones. She helped ensure students wouldn't go hungry. She championed reproductive health care rights and bodily autonomy. She pushed renewable energy investments and authored Minnesota's solar standard and community solar law. She also prioritized protecting democracy, safeguarding free and fair elections in a time when democratic norms are under pressure nationwide. That's not small stuff. That's generational work. And yet Morrison made it clear. Melissa often deflected praise. She let others take the spotlight. She understood leadership wasn't about ego. It was about results. The resolution also honored Mark Hortman, described as caring, genuine, and deeply devoted to his family. Their story, meeting through big brothers, big sisters, building a life centered on service, reminds us that public servants are also parents, partners, neighbors. This speech wasn't partisan. It wasn't political theater. It was human. But it also carried an undeniable undercurrent. Political violence has consequences. Real ones. Families destroyed. Communities grieving. Democracy shaken. When Morrison said this was a moment of mourning, a great giant among Minnesota lawmakers, she wasn't exaggerating. Losing leaders to violence is not something any democracy should normalize. What this moment asks of us is bigger than party. It asks whether we can reject the idea that political differences justify hatred, whether we can recommit to civil discourse, whether we can remember that our opponents are still human beings. Melissa Hortman's legacy wasn't just policy. It was a model of leadership grounded in dignity. In a time when outrage dominates headlines, this tribute was a reminder that service, empathy, and conviction still matter. And perhaps the most powerful part of Morrison's resolution was this. True leaders don't bully and coerce. They listen, sacrifice, and inspire others toward a better future. That's a message worth remembering.